it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk all about what I think the meta is going to look like in the Series 12 VGC season for most of 2022. It's starting to have some tournaments and it will start online in February 1st next week. So the meta's already started developing a little bit and I'm going to talk about what we're seeing and where I think it might go in the future. So stick around. So, as we know, the Series 12 rule set will be in place from February 1st of 2022, which is next week, all the way through the end of August 2022. So, we know that the VGC 2022 season will be played under this format in its entirety. And as part of the rule set, once again, you can play with restricted legendaries. These are the box art legendaries seen over here on this side of the screen, and this time you can have 2 of them and Dynamax is allowed again. So as we can expect, the meta is going to revolve heavily around counters to the most popular restricted Pokemon, especially, of course, Kyogre and Xacien. I'll talk about them later, but we expect those two to be used widely throughout VGC Series 12. So, of course, Xacien. As always, we know that Xacien is incredibly powerful, incredibly fast. It's outsped naturally only by Calyrex Shadow and Regieleki, and when it's paired with Kyogre as its partner restricted Pokemon, it neutralizes one of its 2 weaknesses because the power of fire moves is cut in half in the rain, leaving it with only significant danger from its ground type weakness. In Series 12, we can expect Zacian's moveset to change just a little bit and expect it to carry Play Rough more often in order to deal with restricted threats like Palkia and Veltal. Some important counters, as always, Cycling Intimidates with Incineroar and Landorus T can be very effective. Both of these Pokemon have super effective attacks against Xacien in the form of Flare Blitz from Incineroar and Earthquake, Maxquake from Landorus. Xacien is also weak to Fake Out because it can't Dynamax, so that gives Incineroar an extra edge up on Xacien as well. A counter that's a little bit more niche that I think could be really effective against Xacien is something like Volcarona. Because of its bug fire typing, it resists steel, fighting, and fairy type moves, all 3 coverage moves that Xacien typically runs. Plus, you can use Rage Powder to redirect Zacian's moves away from Volcarona's partner because Xacien does not carry spread moves. So you can really kind of, with a bulky enough set on Volcarona, you can really nerf Xacien and really remove its power as an offensive threat on the field. Next up is Zacian's most common partner in the tournaments we've seen so far in the Series 12 meta, Kyogre. We all know how Kyogre works. It sets up its own rain, which doubles the power of its devastating water type moves. Plus, it typically runs an item like Mystic Water to boost the power of those water type moves even further. With the proper speed control and a fast enough Kyogre, Water Spout can do devastating damage. Remember, it works kind of like other moves like Eruption, to where it's a function of Kyogre's HP. If Kyogre is at full HP, Water Spout's base power is 150, and that base power decreases as Kyogre's HP decreases, which is why speed control is important when you're running a Water Spout Kyogre. Kyogre can also threaten opposing Kyogres with its Thunder coverage and opposing grass types with its Ice Beam coverage. So it's kind of a restricted Pokemon that covers its own weaknesses in a lot of great ways. As usual, some important counters to Kyogre are going to be super effective Pokemon that are faster than Kyogre. So Rillaboom's Priority Grassy Glide and Regieleki just as a super fast electric type Pokemon. Both of these can do great damage to Kyogre. They have very strong, super effective stab moves, and they can get those moves onto the Kyogre before the Kyogre gets a chance to do its own Water Spout. So other more niche counters I might expect to pick up in usage to help deal with this are going to be things like Gastrodon with Storm Drain can really threaten Kyogre away from Dynamaxing while also having a super effective stab move against its partner Xacien in the form of Earth Power. Another interesting counter that I could see getting some play and doing very well in certain niche situations would be Rayquaza. Rayquaza can be a very good weather counter to both Kyogre and Sun teams with its Airlock ability, plus it gets access to Stab Max Airstream for speed control. So now that we've covered the 2 most common Pokemon we expect to see in the Series 12 meta, I'm going to talk about some still very common Pokemon, but maybe a little bit less used. So first up is a Veltal. A Veltal is a very strong ability with the ability to run a mixed set. It can be either special attacking or physical attacking or both. And its attacks Sucker Punch and Snarl can neutralize opposing Calyrex shadows very easily. And again, access to Stab Max Airstream is always incredibly helpful for speed control. Some counters that we might consider for Veltal, again, Xacien is an incredible Pokemon. There's a reason why it's the most used Pokemon in most restricted metas. It resists both of the Veltal stabs, and it's super effective against a Veltal with its very tight play rough. And it's unaffected by Snarl's special attack drop. So Xacien pretty effectively counters Veltal, and we can expect that to sort of limit Veltal's usage. Keep in mind also that while Kyogre and Xacien were the most commonly used restricted in recent Series 12 tournaments, if the combination of Veltal and Groudon came in first and second in 2 separate recent tournaments, so it might actually be a very good niche pick for the meta. They certainly have good symmetry in the fact that Groudon can run moves like Earthquake without affecting its partner because Veltal is a flying type and immune to ground type moves. Which is another reason why we can expect Groudon to be a good pairing for a Veltal, because Groudon's fire and ground type moves can really help to deal with the Xaciens that a Veltal has a difficult time dealing with. So as usual, like we've seen in past restricted formats, Sun is a strong counter to rain teams, but you have to make sure that you play them smart to win the weather war. Because if you can keep the Sun up and you can keep your team up under Sun, you'll beat the opposing rain teams. But if they get rain up on you, the rain team's probably going to win that battle. Sun teams are pretty standard. Groudon's ability Drought sets the Sun up. Venusaur's ability Chlorophyll doubles Venusaur's speed in Sun, so Venusaur can be both a great support Pokemon with fast Sleep Powder to protect its partner from threats, and a great attacker with tons of coverage moves like Earth Power and Weather Ball, which in the Sun becomes a fire type move. Some important counters to Sun teams. Remember, you gotta watch out for those rain teams. They can counter Sun teams very effectively if they win the weather war, because of course water is super effective against fire. I will say that I expect to see a little bit less of Gmax Charizard on Sun teams in this meta, and that's just because you're typically gonna want to Dynamax one of your restricted Pokemon since you have 2 of them, and Charizard doesn't do great outside of Dynamax. If you're not going to Dynamax it, it's not going to offer enough additional power on your team to justify having it. Another sort of niche counter to Sun teams that I want to consider would be something like Rotom Heat. It resists fire attacks, so it's a great counter to something like Charizard, for example. And Levitate gives it a ground immunity to help with Groudon's ground-typed attacks as well. And its own fire attacks are super effective against Pokemon like Venusaur that you'll see on most Sun teams. Just make sure you give it an item like Safety Goggles to protect it against Venusaur's Sleep Powder, because Venusaur will almost certainly outspeed Rotom Heat. And the last Pokemon I want to talk about today that I expect to get significant usage in VGC Series 12 is Palkia. Palkia has a fantastic matchup into Kyogre because it's 4 times resists water. However, Palkia is weak to Fairy, and we expect Xacien to be running Play Rough more often in this meta. One of those reasons is to help it deal with Palkia. So while Palkia could be a very great niche pick, and it can do very well in a double restricted meta like this, you'll need to play carefully around Xacien and make sure that you have a partner restricted that can really deal with Xacien effectively. And as always, I just want to remind you to play with the Pokemon that are the most fun for you to play with. But if you want to be successful in competitive play, either on the online ladder or at tournaments, make sure that you have a game plan for how you're going to deal with the Pokemon that you can expect to see the most of, especially Kyogre and Xacien. That's all I got for y'all today. If you have any comments about how you think the meta is going to look and how you think you'll deal with some of these most common threats, be sure to leave a comment down below and tell me all about it. I'd love to have a talk with you. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all later. Bye!